of one family's sorrow, that family being Amalek, working to give Israel and the world a king, King Jesus, who is the bread of life. Which brings us to our text for today. We find that in chapter 1, verse 1, there was a famine in the land. Bread was scarce in this little town of Bethlehem, which its name means house of bread. Because of an empty house of bread, we find that a man named Amalek and his wife Naomi and their two sons, Mahlon and Chilion, traveled to the country of Moab. For those of you who are not geographical experts like myself, Moab is now present-day Jordan. They are looking for bread to survive this famine. But God's law forbade the Israelites to assemble among the Moabites because they were known for their idol worship. They were known for serving several gods. But Amalek's love, this rare bond, he was committed to his family. He disobeys God. He takes his family into a Moabite territory. It reminds me of the R&B artist Al Green. He had a song out in the early 70s called Love Makes You Do Wrong Sometimes, Even When You Want to Do Right. So here we find Amalek doing the wrong thing, disobeying God, but it's because he has this love and this passion for his family. Amalek's only intended to stay for a little while. But verse 3 tells us that Amalek died there. Sometimes a little while can be too long. If I can share one of my own personal stories with you this morning. My father is now 89 years of age. Yes, his sight has deteriorated some. Yes, he doesn't walk as fast as he used to. And Lord knows he doesn't hear like he used to. We had to go and take him to a Walgreens in the local community where he lives. And Daddy has this 1970 GMC truck. One that I'm not really familiar with driving. But one thing it did have, it had a handicap sticker in the front. I told Daddy, I said, we're going to go and get your medicine from Walgreens. And you're just going to ride with me. You won't be there very long. We get there to the Walgreens. I park into a handicap parking place. It's only designated for handicapped people. Now, my dad is handicapped, but I'm not. Sometimes we do the wrong thing like Amalek, but for the right reasons. I said to myself, I'm only going to be here for a little while. I ran into the Walgreens, picked up my father's medications, and on my way out, what did I see? A policeman placing a ticket on my car. I was only there for a little while, but a little while was too long. And this is Amalek's story. Here we find in verse 4, we see the marriage now of Amalek's sons being married to Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. In the following verse, we see the death of Amalek's sons. They died childless, and they died with no heirs. The family that left Bethlehem, Amalek, Naomi, and the two sons were all gone except for this one remaining survivor, that being Naomi. But here she is now. She is cut off from her own people and from the place of God's promise. Naomi never turned back to the Lord that she knew, as the generations had done before her. Naomi held on to her faith. She held on to her God. In the following verses, we see that Naomi hears the news, and I'm all about news, as long as some good news, that the famine was over in Bethlehem. So for them, Naomi and her two daughter-in-laws prepared to return to Bethlehem, to a land of plenty, back to a house of bread. Now, Naomi begins to reflect, and Naomi begins to reconsider some things. The future for these two Moabite women was very bleak. How were they going to live and survive in Bethlehem? A future for them as foreign Moabite women. A future for them with no family except for Naomi. A future where Oprah or Ruth may never take husbands again. A future, how would they survive? If only by relying on the kindness of others. They had no men to protect them. What kind of future could they have there? A future of no children to sustain them in their old age. Now Naomi has this deep affection, this rare bond of love for her two Moabite daughter-in-laws. She makes the heartbreaking choice to urge them to go back to their motherland. She only came to this land because she came to a house that no longer had any bread. But she finds herself with this deep affection, a rare bond of love. Yes, I said a rare bond of love for these two Moabite women. Naomi says to them, may the Lord show you kindness as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and unto me. And may you find a home with one of these new husbands. This kindness is a Hebrew word. It is called hesed. Hesed encompasses so many aspects of love. Hesed is a covenant kindness. Hesed is a steadfast love. Hesed is a love of loyalty. And Hesed is the faithful love. Hesed is an unfailing love. Hesed is a great love. And Hesed is a rare bond of love. God's character, the one that we serve today, describes this kind of Hesed love. His love is an abounding love. It's a rare love. It's an unbreakable covenant that we have with one another. Here we are this morning in an empty house of bread, but it's giving rise to a rare bond of love. Both Oprah and Ruth insisted on going on with Naomi. But Naomi tells them, she says, no, my sisters, there are no more sons for you to marry. Naomi refers to God's law. Now this law was called the kinsman redeemer. Yes. I want you women now to start paying really close to what I'm saying now. It provided a man to marry his brother's widow. This helped ensure the dead brother's name and inheritance would continue. But both brothers now are dead. There's no name to carry on, and there's no inheritance to claim. So that tells us all hope is gone. Just for a moment now, women, could any of you imagine marrying your brother-in-law to carry on your family's name? I have to laugh right about now. My husband is one who bails people out of jail. My brother-in-law is the one who resides inside the jail. This morning, I just want to let you know, it doesn't matter who you are. God can use you anywhere, in any place, and any time. As we come to this narrative story, we see that Oprah leaves Naomi. She returns to her people and to her God. But we find that Ruth, yes, Ruth, she's clinging to her mother-in-law. She's clinging to her. Yes, she is. She's describing this kind of Hesed love, a love that's a royal love, a love that has a rare bond for one another, a love that's an unbreakable covenant with God. It's a love that has a deep commitment for one another. And in Ruth's last testimony, we see an example of this Hesed love. She says, your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will be buried. How extraordinary those words of a covenant love coming from a woman that we first heard some of these words given to her mother-in-law. Now we find that today, wedding vows take on some of those God. She's no longer a foreigner. For God's grace gave her a new name. God's grace gave her a new identity. Now she is a child of God. This grace, this amazing grace, it brought to her a new home, a home in Bethlehem, a home with a house of bread where she will be no longer hungry. This grace brought and gave her a new future to serve with the risen Savior. This is what I'm saying to you this morning. Naomi believed, though. In her heart, I know she believed. She believed that God's hands was against her, but God used Israel. Yes, he did. I say he used Israel. He used her through her daughter-in-law Ruth, as the center of God's plan for the world. God always has a plan. Oftentimes we don't see this plan. We're not always following the directions of God, but he's busy working. He's busy working today. Yes, he is. This plan revealed the king. It would be a king of kings. Jesus is that king. Jesus is that Messiah. Jesus is that bread of life. And because of this hesed love, God sent Jesus to the cross as our Redeemer. An empty house of bread gave rise to a rare bond of love. Ironically, this narrative story began in Bethlehem, a house of bread, providing bread to nourish one's body. Remember this house of bread. Here it was now. They had plenty of bread to eat. But this house in Bethlehem was the same house that Jesus started in. Remember, he was born in a little town called Bethlehem. How ironic is this story, that Ruth's story ended up to be the story of the king. It started out to be a story about Mary's baby, the bright and morning star, the lily of the valley. Where is this baby? He's now grown up and he's the wheel. Somebody said he's the wheel in the middle of the wheel. He is the resurrected and he is the risen Christ. He is the bread of life. I want to end with a closing prayer. So if you would be so kind to bow your heads with me this morning. Oh God, how majestic you are in all your works. As with Ruth and Naomi, your hesed love broke down the social barriers. They broke down cultures. They broke down languages and religions. Teach us, oh Lord, this morning to have that kind of hesed love. As we are faced with social and racial injustices in this country. You weave our lives together with that rare bond of love by sending us a Redeemer, your Son Jesus, who gives us love, a hesed love. He gave us a home, a house of bread in heaven, where will feed us until we want no more. He gave us hope, which is eternal salvation as a lasting inheritance. We thank you for this word today. And we thank you for this day because you created it. In the name of your Son, Jesus.